Welcome to our evening lesson in mathematics. In our last lesson, we were looking at how to make a budget. And a budget basically contained fixed expenses and variable expenses. And now we want to look at how to budget using percentages. Budgeting using percentages. We have already looked at the term percentages. We know what this particular term percent means, which basically means out of 100 parts. So we are going to allocate funds based on percentages. In our budgets, we have several items, as we have already looked at in our previous lesson. Those items that we have will be allocated money based on percentages. I also hope that you remember how to convert percentages into fractions and decimals so that we can calculate the percentages of given items. To illustrate this, let us look at an example. How do we budget using percentages? In this particular example, Christine has a net annual income of $36,000. After deductions. She allocates her budget on a percentage basis. In the first row, we have the expenses. And the second row, we have the percentages allocated to each expense. And the first one is mortgage. Which is allocated 20% of the total annual net income. Then we have the car loan, which is allocated 15%. Food is allocated 25%, which is about a quarter of the annual income. Clothing is allocated 20%. Sundries is allocated 10%. And lastly, we have savings, which is also 10%. So when we add up all these percentages, we must get 100%. And 100% will be equal to the total net annual income that Christine will earn. The questions are, determine the amount of fixed expenses. Including the amount of fixed expenses including mortgages, and car loan. We need to determine the amount of fixed expenses, and in this case we are just talking about mortgages and car loan. For us to determine the amount that should be allocated to mortgages and car loan, we need to get the total percentage. The total percentage of mortgage and car loan, so that we can get that particular percentage of the entire annual net income. Mortgage and car loan will give us a total of 35%. This is 35% of her net income. 35% of her net income. And for us to get the actual amount, to convert from percentage to the actual amount, we need to write this as a fraction before we multiply by her annual income. And this will be 35% of $36,000. When we multiply, the mortgages and car loan will give us $12,600. The second question is on savings. How much should Christine save? How much should Christine save? How much should Christine save? Remember savings from the table that we've just had. Savings is allocated 10% of her net annual income. So the amount that goes to saving is 10%. And this particular amount will be 10 out of 100 multiplied by $36,000. And this will be $3,600. This is the amount that she will save in a year. The next question is on the amount of money allocated to food. How much? How much money is allocated to food, and is it reasonable? How much is allocated to food, and is it reasonable? We also need to remember that the amount allocated to food is 25%. Is 25%. 25%, which is actually a quarter of the net income. We first of all calculate this amount before we determine whether it is reasonable or not. This will be 25 out of 100% multiplied by $36,000. Which will give us $9,000 per year. $9,000 per year. This is the amount that is allocated to food. How do we determine whether it is reasonable or not? A point to note that for the amount allocated to food to be reasonable, should range between $150 to $200 per week. So we have the amount allocated to food in the entire year. We need to calculate how much will be spent on food in a single week. So this means 52 weeks. 52 weeks is equal to $9,000. What about 1 week? What will be the amount allocated to food in 1 week? And this will be a week out of 52 weeks multiplied by $9,000, and this will give us $173 per week. When you look at it, this amount is between $150 and $200, so it is reasonable. That amount is reasonable. But as we have learned, that food is a variable expense, and it can vary from one person to another. The more you consume food, the more you spend. So some people can even spend less than that, but a reasonable amount should range between $150 to $200. But some can spend less than that, and even others can spend above the $200 ceiling. Let us look at a second example. John's petrol budget. John's petrol budget is $47 from his weekly income. His weekly income of $350 The first question is, what percentage of his budget is this? What percentage of his budget is this? And we need to give our answer Give your answer to 2 decimal places. So we are told that he spends $47 out of his weekly income of $350 on petrol. So we want to express this $47 as a percentage of $350. So the amount allocated to petrol is $47 out of the $350 weekly income. And for us to express this, we need to take the cost of petrol out of the weekly income then we multiply by 100%. By doing that, we'll have converted that to a percentage. And the cost of petrol is $47 out of his weekly income, which is $350. When we multiply by 100%, this will give us 13.43%. So the percentage of his weekly income allocated to petrol is 13.43%. The next question is, if petrol costs $1.59 a liter, $1.59 a liter, how many liters of petrol can he buy? Give your answer. To 2 decimal places. We want to know if John spends $47 in a week to buy petrol, and a liter of petrol goes at $1.59. How many liters will he be able to buy using the $47? This means $1.59 can buy 1 liter of petrol. What about $47. This will buy how many liters? That will buy how many liters? When we apply cross multiplication, the number of liters to be bought will be 1.59 multiplied by the number of liters to be bought should be equal to $47 multiplied by 1 liter. And this means the number of liters will be equal to $47 multiplied by 1 liter divided by the cost per liter. The cost per liter. And this will give us a total of 29.56 liters. $29.56 liters. That is the number of liters that he will buy using the $47. Let us look at another example. That will be our third example. Grand Works at 34 hour a 34-hour week at the rate of 15.50 per week, per hour, not per week. His net income is 65% of his gross income. His net income is 65% of his gross income. That means after deductions, you remember how to calculate net income. The net income was basically the difference between gross income and deductions. So after deductions, his net income will be 65% of this gross income. The first question is for us to determine his net weekly income. We need to determine his net weekly income. And we have been told that his net weekly income is equal to 65% of his gross weekly income. So we cannot calculate the net income if at all we've not calculated the gross income. So it is prudent that we calculate the gross weekly income first before we get 65% of that. And the gross income weekly income will be calculated from the information we have here. That Grant works 34 hours in a week. This is under normal rates. So if it is under normal rates and we are told that the rate per hour, the payment is made per hour and the rate per hour is $15.50 per hour. So if in 1 hour this person earns 15.50, how much will the person earn in a week that he has worked a total of 34 hours? So the gross weekly income will be equal to the number of hours worked in a week multiplied by the rates per hour. The number of hours worked are 34 hours, and at the rate of $15.50 per hour. This one and this one will cancel. And this will give us a gross income of $527. This is what the person will make in a week. That is the gross income. But the question wanted us to calculate the net weekly income. So our net weekly income will be calculated as follows. We have the formula here already. Is equal to 65% of the gross income, which is $527. And this will be 65 out of 100 multiplied by $527. This will give us a net weekly income of $342.55. This is what will be the net weekly income. The second part is for us to calculate the money allocated to entertainment. Part B, if Grant spends 12% of his net income on entertainment, %12 of his net income on entertainment, determine the amount he actually spends. This person spends 12% of the net income that we have just calculated on entertainment. So entertainment will be equal to 12% of the net income. That is the net weekly income. We are talking about a week. And this will be 12 out of 100 of, remember, of means multiplication. And this will give us how much will that be? $41.106, and this can be approximately $41.11. That is the amount that this person spends on entertainment. The next question, the third part of that third question, that third example. C, calculate his annual expenditure on entertainment. We need to calculate the annual expenditure on entertainment. But in a week, we have already calculated that the person spends $41.106. 1 week, the person spends $41.106. And in a year, that will be 52 weeks. A year has 52 weeks. This will be 52 multiplied by the amount spent in 1 week. $2,137.51. This will be the amount that we'll spend on entertainment in a year. Bado dakika ngapi? 15. Let us have another question. But before we go to that, there is the very last part of this question where we are told Grant saves $40 per week. $40 per week. What percentage of his net income is this? What percentage of his net income is this? Savings amounts to $40 in a week. So we need to express this as a percentage of the net weekly income. As a percentage of the net weekly income. So basically this means savings will be equal to $40 out of the net weekly. The net weekly income. How much is Grant's net weekly income? We have already calculated that. Savings is $40 out of the $342.55. So we express this as a percentage of this. Percentage of saving. This will be the savings out of the net weekly income multiplied by 100. So we have already learned that when you multiply this particular fraction or this particular ratio by 100%, we will be expressing this numerator here as a percentage of this denominator. And this will give us 11.68%. Two decimal places. Savings will be 11.68% of the net weekly income. So we have been looking at how to budget using percentages, budgeting using percentages, and different items are allocated funds based on different percentages. So you'll discover that some items will have a higher percentage while others will have a lower percentage. That is what we have been doing. Having done that, I now want to give you an assignment that will help you during revision, so that as you revise, you try to solve the questions that I'm going to give you. The first question is, Paul has an annual income of $25,000 after deductions. After deductions, he allocates his budget on a percentage basis. On a percentage basis. Mortgage is allocated 25%, not 25, 20%. The car loan is allocated 10%. Food is allocated also 10%. Personal loan is allocated 25%. Clothing is allocated 5%, and other expenses are given 30%. The questions are, we determine the amount of fixed expenses, which includes the mortgage, and loans. That is the total amount that will be spent on mortgages and loans. And remember, we have two types of loans, the car loan and we also have the personal loan. And our second question is, how much should Paul have left over after the fixed expenses listed in his budget? So you will be looking at the amount that will be left over after spending on the fixed expenses only. And our last question is, the amount allocated for food reasonable? Remember, in our first example, we looked at the range at which the amount allocated for food should be. And I remember telling you that it should range between $150 to $200. But I also cautioned you that that amount is subject to variations. A person who spends more is the one who consumes a lot of food. And those ones who consume less, of course, they will spend a smaller amount. So in today's lesson, we have looked at how to budget using percentages. different items, allocated amounts based on the various percentages that have already been predetermined. In our next lesson, we will still be looking at how to budget or budgeting, but in that particular lesson, we'll be looking at budgeting using fixed amounts, fixed figures. We will no longer be looking at percentages, but fixed amounts. So thank you and welcome to my next lesson.